I could feel very high.
It's a new day on the Enterprise, and we're licking the wounds we took in the last episode. Repairs to the mine-shaped hole will take months, assuming we can find the materials, and it's affecting our top speed too, so buggering off home to fix it isn't an option either. Under the circumstances, Archer decides it's time we became one of those distress calls we keep running across. As Reed's undergoing physio for his leg, the meat of which had a metal tube put through it previously, you'll remember, we're receiving a response to our distress call up on the bridge. Through a very bad signal indeed, we're told the caller, the captain of a Tellarite freighter apparently, can't help us personally, but they know of a place quite near that could do the job. T'Pol is familiar with the Tellarites and says they're above board, mostly, so over we pop to take a look. The installation in question provides no response when we try to say hi. Tucker concludes we should rob the place instead, but just as T'Pol's giving us readings from inside, we ourselves are scanned in return. Looks like the scan was to see what we need, as a repair bay expands to fit our ship, and the station itself changes the atmosphere to match our own. We park up and pop inside to take a look, following guide lights to an interface room of some sort. A hologram of the Enterprise already has our repair needs highlighted, and it's all legible too, so the station scanned our computers as well. Rather curiously, the damage to Reed's leg has also been identified as something to fix. A voice tells us repairs will begin when we select a form of payment, though we discover it's a computer with very limited responses when we try to ask questions. One of the payment options is warp juice, and as all the others involve hardware, we plug for that. Repairs will take a day and a half, says the system, and we'll pay at the end. While the computer gets started on things, we're told there are recreation facilities on the station as well. Looks like we might be getting a free holiday into the bargain, though based on how our last shore leave on Riser worked out for us, that may not be quite the bonus it appears. The free facilities we've been offered amount to a sparsely equipped observation room, but at least the tables can replicate whatever food or drink is desired. Tucker's impressed, though Archer decides he'd rather dine back on the ship. Also back on the ship is a gizmo pooping some white at Reed's leg. He's not sold on the whole idea, though Phlox is entranced. The gizmo stops and teleports away, leaving a now fully healed Reed to reconsider his opinion. Things are going similarly well on the mechanical side. The repairs already completed are a little better than what they replaced, though T'Pol notes Archer isn't entirely content. He admits this whole setup doesn't feel right to him, and he's struggling to shake the suspicion. Perhaps Tucker's starting to feel the same way. He's talking to Reed about this station, specifically a scan he's made of it, and something doesn't fit, literally. This sort of setup would need massive processing power if it's fully automated, with a correspondingly large footprint on the plans, yet the only space of the installation we haven't accounted for is smaller than the waiting room they're in. Sounds like a mystery, so in true Starfleet fashion, he convinces Reed to join him in a bit of the old breaking and entering. Going where you're not supposed to is a theme on the Enterprise too. Travis receives a call in his quarters. It's Archer's voice on the other end asking for his help in a launch bay. Travis was under the impression that area was restricted due to repairs, but is told this is no longer the case, so sets off. Let's hope his journey is less eventful than Tucker's and Reed's. Crawling through a conduit sets off an alarm and a teleporter, with them being deposited back on our bridge. Suffice to say, Archer's not delighted when he finds out. A serious bollocking ends with confinement to quarters, though he's not above asking if they found anything odd during their travels. The answer will have to wait, as T'Pol calls Archer to say he's needed right now in a launch bay. Not that there was really much point in rushing. It certainly won't stop Travis being dead. Electrocution. That's the short version of what killed him, though it doesn't add up. There was no reason for him to be here tinkering while he was off duty, and it was off limits, and Tucker thinks he'd have asked before dicking around anyway. Trying to find out what happened from the repair station's computer gets nowhere. If the system keeps a log of activity, it's not inclined to share. Phlox is performing the post-mortem when Hoshi arrives, she and Travis having had dinner on the station before he died. She wanted to make sure he was dead, the answer being very much so. A little more dead than expected, in fact, according to Phlox, and he calls Archer down to sickbay. This, apparently, is not Travis. It's a meat copy. We know this because Phlox recently vaccinated everybody aboard after a crew member became ill, and the modified goobers in the medication should have still been alive. Doubly so, in fact, as they love a bit of the old electric. Concluding that this must be a perfect replica of Travis because they're dead feels like a bit of a stretch to me, but I suppose he's the space doctor, so we'll defer to him. As the only new thing in today's episode is the station, Archer concludes this must be responsible. Sounds like time for another poke around, and Reed thinks he can do a better job now he knows where the alarm is. Every good heist requires a little misdirection, which is why Tucker's arguing the quality of the repair work before he'll hand over payment. With the computer distracted, Reed's crawling through a conduit again. He triggers the alarm and is teleported away once more, but this was part of the plan, as Archer and T'Pol are scanning the system. Tucker hears the alarm and decides it's time to scarper, while Archer and T'Pol poop some red all over the place. The now clear path leads them to a room with racks, tubing, and a whole lot of dusty people. According to the warning voice, we're in the primary data core. We've found the computer, and it appears to be made of brainial meat, based on T'Pol saying the bodies are all linked. The process has done very bad things indeed to said brainial meat, so finding Travis and disconnecting him is probably worth the risk. The station does not take kindly to this and grabs hold of the Enterprise. We also start losing control over our systems, which is going to be rather a problem when we try to bugger off. That might be soon, as a now loose Travis is being dragged away. A bit more pooping makes an exit, and they all scarper from the station. Of course, this leaves us on a ship we can no longer fly. We've planned ahead, though, and put a special gift in the warp juice we delivered as payment. A signal triggers it and kabooms the interface room, then additional kabooms start to bollocks up the rest of the station. That would be great news if we weren't still attached to it, but we've got control back now, so we fart a couple of fireworks at the one arm still holding onto us, then bugger off while the whole thing turns into a debris field. Travis is recovering in sickbay. Being made part of a biological processing unit hasn't turned his brain into soup, which is more than can be said for the other inhabitants. Bugger them, though, as they're all a sticky red paste by this point. Or perhaps not, as the destroyed station is not quite as inactive as we thought, so we'll leave who or whatever survived to reverse the damage as we get ready to take another step on the long road. The oft-needed but rarely seen task of repairing ship damage is given some thought today. Taking a bit of a pasting is a regular thing on Trek, and is usually followed by the big red reset button between episodes, so a nod to the aftermath of such events is a welcome change. The same could be said of Reed's leg, though I note we conveniently healed everybody else injured by the mine over the course of just 4 days, purely so we could focus on him. Then again, maybe Phlox simply doesn't like the bastard and left him till last. Perhaps he holds a grudge over that time Reed wanted to torture some goo. The story itself isn't particularly novel when you break it down to its component parts. Nefarious computers are 10 a penny, and using brainial meat as a CPU isn't exactly new either. Not everything needs to be groundbreaking, though, and the end result is something that manages to be entertaining enough for what it is. We're not quite in chicken nugget territory, one of those narrative meals you're supposed to eat without thinking too hard about the ingredients, but it's certainly a dish that benefits from not taking things too seriously. That's not to say it's without charm, though, and we have a few nice little touches to consider. We'll do them in order, so first is the call from a Tellarite freighter which directs us to the repair station. Or was it really? The signal was audio only and highly distorted, and we learn later on that the repair station can mimic voices. T'Pol says it's a call from a freighter, sure, but is she basing that on sensor data or what we were told in the response to our call? For that matter, there's no way of knowing if the repair station can fake sensor readings. That's certainly a popular plot point among other Trek shows, and we're seeing a comparable level of technological capability from this station. Next up, we have what could be a couple of bits of subtle foreshadowing. The repair station identifying Reed's buggered leg is worthy of some points. You could argue this implies the station saw his injury as damage to a component of our ship, an idea that slots neatly into the secret we reveal. That it also serves as a nod to continuity, addressing the after effects of our last story, is just a bonus. The second bit of possible foreshadowing is an image of Travis in particular on a screen in the interface room. It suggests he may have been a component of interest to the station computer right from the start. It's only circumstantial evidence, I'll grant you, but it's not alone. The conclusion is further supported by Travis in particular being targeted by the fake call rather than whoever was closest to Shuttle Bay 1 at the time. For that matter, the computer could have taken Tucker or Reed far more plausibly when they broke into a conduit. Nabbing one or both of those in the process of teleporting them away, perhaps sticking them in a buffer if time was needed to replicate copies, would have raised fewer questions than the business with Travis. Perhaps the computer simply wasn't capable of considering this option, with the method of seeking replacement brains being a set and unchangeable plan. Regardless, the circumstances imply there's more behind the selection process than convenience or a simple roll of the dice. Whether Travis was selected for raw cognitive power, or because his experience on the helm gave him superior spatial computation, or simply because he was the healthiest member of the crew and thus likely to survive for the longest, is a question we don't answer. And questions we don't answer are somewhat of a theme, aren't they? Anybody who's been here for a while will know I prefer a question to an unsatisfying answer, and we end the episode with the station itself being a pretty big question mark. We're essentially given no data on it at all, no hints to its origin or purpose, nothing to suggest its age beyond the previous kidnap victims having been there for years. Maybe the station was deposited there just a decade back, or maybe this is simply the latest in 1,000 cycles of being destroyed and rebuilding. We'll never know. We can theorize, though, and I can't help but consider what an effective form of knowledge gathering this station represents. Full and complete scans of the specifications of ships, including both materials used and technological level, computer contents with full libraries of cultural information, and a nicked biological specimen to study at will, possibly including the contents of the brain as well. Even encounters that end as badly as it did in this episode are useful, as then you have first-hand experience of combat capabilities. If you're willing to ignore the ethics involved, you'd struggle to find a more efficient data harvesting system. The punchline to all of this theorizing was going to be me suggesting the station could have been made by Google, but then I realized it can't be, as the repairs didn't stop every 4 minutes to play you an advert. End of episode.
Why are we doing this, by the way? I mean, making a translator for Porthos.
Maybe I want to see dogs standing side by side. Don't you believe in canine solidarity?
No, and neither do you.
Bit harsh, mate.
It's true. In fact, we never really established why you and I are a double act.
I think it were implied to be a mutual loathing of humans, if you'll recall.
Okay, fine, but that still doesn't explain Porthos. What's the real reason?
There's loads of reasons. There's plenty of good, solid reasons, obviously. Plenty of good, solid, rational reasons that contribute to the rich tapestry of...
It's to fill the credit skits, isn't it?
Pretty much, yeah.